everyone, welcome to Yarny Quaz Crochet. My name is Amber and today we are going back to the Annie's Caring Crochet Kit Club. Now this package here is actually the March 2021 kit. I got a little bit behind because I'm one of those people that I don't like to start another project until I finish the current one. I finally got the other kit finished and a couple of other projects done that I needed to get accomplished, so I can jump back into this now. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we get to do this month. Well, actually a month ago. Ooh, we got 3 this time. And this is more of the Annie's yarn, which is great. This stuff is so soft. Like, I completely agree with Sheila, the crochet nurse, that I wish they sold this on their own because I would completely buy it. It looks like this is intended to be made with a baby blanket. Oh, here we go. Oh, look at that. This is for Project Linus this time, you all. Isn't that pretty? Painted Boxes baby blankets. Let's see. Oh, this looks like it's... Okay. Looks like there was something going on with the pattern for this one, so they sent me a little paper telling me what's different. So let's open this up and look at this stuff. I love these colors. This is very gender neutral. It's so pretty. All right, so we'll put that there. Ooh, that is, you all, that's so soft. Look how little. That looks like that's like a 3. That's really thin. Let's see, what is this? Cool machine wash, tumble dry, low heat, no bleach, no iron, 100% acrylic, light 3. Yay, I got it right. 300 yards. And I assume all the rest of this is most likely the same. Yeah, it is. Okay, so we have 3 balls, the same yarn. It's very pretty. It's very soft. It's not as soft as the yarn I got last month. This is a little different, but it's still very nice. Okay, let's see what's in our paper here. This is the Painted Boxes baby blanket. Oh, here's the little card that you include with your project. It's very nice. Now, one good thing about Project Linus is I have a chapter that's local. I don't have to actually ship these. I can just take them to my local chapter and drop them off as soon as I'm done, which is great because I don't have to pay to ship anything. All right. Let's see what this is. It just says that it is on the yarn color. All it says is that it is variegated marl. 3 strands, Delight DK3. We're going to use a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook or a size I, and we need a tapestry needle. And here's what it'll look like right around the time that it's done. Color changes aren't really that subtle. It's definitely kind of blocky. So if you're the type of person that likes smooth color changes, this may get on your nerves. It doesn't bother me that much, but for some people it may. All right, let's see how difficult it's going to be. So we have chains, double crochets, and single crochets. Oh, super easy. No problem. All right, and here's some info about Project Linus, founded in 1995. To provide love, a sense of security, warmth, and comfort to children who are seriously ill, traumatized, or otherwise in need through gifts of new handmade blankets and afghans lovingly created by volunteer blanketeers. How cute. Let's see. Project Linus handmade creations are distributed free of charge to hospitals and treatment centers throughout the country, and most importantly, at no cost to the child. Project Linus is comprised of nearly 400 chapters across the U.S. So if this is something, if you like making blankets, and I did look at their website because Annie's sends you an email when your kit is shipped, so you can actually see what you're going to get before it gets here, which is great for me because I like to do some research on the actual organization to get a heads up to know what all I need to do. At this website here, it tells you absolutely everything you need to know. They also had patterns on there that you could get for free if you need some blanket patterns. And they also had a search on there where you could search by your city or zip code to find out if there is a chapter close to where you live. So this isn't something, this isn't going to be a one-time thing. You can do this over and over. And I've actually been keeping the pamphlets for the organizations that I've donated to since this has started. So this is just my second one. So far I have Project Linus and I have Knots of Love. And it gives me the information so I can do this in the future and donate to them because, like I said, I don't really sell things that I make. I like to give them away as gifts, and I like to make donations because crochet for me is, I like the process of making. So this is perfect. This gives me an excuse to buy more yarn and do things because I'm giving it away to people who need it. Okay, so here's what we get to do this month. I'm excited. I'm ready to get started. I'm going to go get this blanket made, and when it's done, I'll be back to show it to you. See you in a bit. Okay, we are all done with our blanket. It is time for the big reveal. This is what our blanket is supposed to look like, and I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head with it. And here it is in all its glory. Look at this. Isn't this sweet and pretty? This is so soft. This yarn worked up great. The pattern, super easy. This was completely beginner friendly. If you've never made a baby blanket before, if you're new to crochet, this pattern would be great for you. If you are new, but you don't like blankets because they take too long, this is a really quick and easy pattern. If you need to whip up a baby blanket for a gift or anything like that, this would absolutely be a good one. I did enjoy making this blanket. The color changes are nice, but I do have some things that I need to tell you about this yarn. As much as I liked it, as pretty as this blanket turned out, there are some things that I need to tell you. So I'm going to put this to the side for now and talk to you for a few minutes about this yarn. Okay, y'all, here's the deal. We'll just set that there. Here's the deal. This is what I had left of all three of those skeins. I cut it really close. I actually ended up pulling out 2 rows of this blanket because the pattern said to make the blanket until it was 31 inches tall. And mine's about 35 because when I got to the point that I was ready to do the border, I just didn't feel like I was going to have enough yarn. I probably could have left those 2 rows on, but in order for the pattern to work out the way it's supposed to, you have to stop on a certain line because it's a 2-row repeater, and you have to stop on a certain row when it's time to do the border. So that was why I went ahead and backed out 2 entire rows so it would stop where it was supposed to. Okay, so let's talk about this yarn. First things first. If you like color control in your blankets, you will not like this, and here's why. The color changes happen at random. They're not very gradual. They just sort of happen. And some of the color changes, like you'll notice in this blue here, see how short that is, and all the rest of this is green? Like, that's a pretty good chunk of green there. If I spread the blanket completely out and you could really get a good look at it, what you'll notice is you'll have some rows where it'll be purple, 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 purple. And then out of nowhere, you'll have like 2 little squares and a half of like blue. And then it just switches over to gray or green. So you'll just randomly have like a square or 2 that's just come out of nowhere and is a different color. And you'll have 3 color changes happening in like 4 or 5 blocks. So if you like color control, you won't like this. I'll go ahead and tell you that. If it doesn't bother you that much and you like the uniqueness of that, then you'll be just fine. The next biggest thing about this yarn that I've got to tell you is it is very thin. So if you like nice, big, chunky baby blankets, you're probably not going to enjoy this very much. I don't mind the thin yarn overly much, so it doesn't really bother me. But this yarn is just 2 strands. It is only 2 strands that are very loosely spun together. There is a solid white strand that remains throughout the entire skein, and the color change happens with the second strand. And they're just very loosely twisted together. I'll have to tell you, when I really got to looking at this yarn and realized how it was spun together, I was very worried. I was very concerned because I foresaw nothing but problems with this. I have worked with loosely spun yarn before, and it was a challenge. I don't know if any of you have ever worked with Lion Brand's Homespun. It's a beautiful yarn, and it made one of the softest, prettiest beanies that I have ever made that I gave to a friend of mine for Christmas. But it was a challenge, and frogging was a challenge with that yarn. Frogging wasn't too bad with this yarn, thank goodness, because I had to frog a lot. Mainly because this yarn would split so much. And one of the biggest problems that I had is whenever I would really get on a row with crocheting and I was just, going, and you pick up some speed, I would catch myself going through my yarn, splitting through it like that. My hook would go through and I was only pulling up one strand, and then it looked all wonky if you didn't catch it. Thankfully, I caught it every time because I learned to just sort of slow down a little bit with this. And it was still fine. I mean, I was still able to work with it. I could work with it again. I cannot honestly tell you that I would buy this yarn. If someone gave it to me, fine. But I would not buy this. Not because it's not soft, because it is. And not because it's not pretty, because it is. I mean, look what it did. I mean, this is just lovely. This is a lovely little blanket. But this yarn is difficult. It's not easy by any means. The absolute biggest problem that I had with this was tangling. The first skein of yarn that I used, I got out my yarn ball winder and was going to wind it into a cake. And it was a terrible mess. It knotted up so badly because I tried to do a center pull from the skein, because that's usually how I do it when I cake my yarn. And it knotted so badly that I had to cut the knots out, undo the knots, and then connect it back to the yarn. And it took a while because this is so thin and because it's split. There were parts of the yarn that I just couldn't salvage. I had to completely toss it because when this yarn got knotted and it split in two, it had done it in so many different places that I couldn't fix it. I couldn't get it out. So I threw away a couple of yards of yarn just because there was no untangling it. I could not do it, couldn't manage it. And I finally just got frustrated and just cut that part out and tossed it. But it hurt my heart to do it. It hurt my heart, but I had no choice. Another problem was that this yarn does not do well in cake form, especially a center pull cake form. Even after I finally got it all unknotted and caked up, as I was working with that first skein, the cake still kept getting knotted in itself. This yarn is not good for center pulling at all. So the next two skeins, when it came time to use those, I just wound them into a ball by hand. It did make it much easier to work with. However, I still noticed that the yarn was still tangling on itself, and I had to be very careful because where I had my ball in my yarn bowl, and I would just pull it out loosely, you know, like that, to have some loose yarn lying so I could pick up my yarn and crochet faster. If I didn't like gently lay this like out upon itself easily, as I would use the yarn and it would pull itself, you know, as I'm using it, it got tangled on itself. And like, as it would come up to my hand, I would grab onto a knot and have to stop and untangle everything, which it wasn't, again, it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, they were loose knots. So luckily I didn't have to spend more than a couple of seconds, maybe a minute or two, untangling some of the knots, because some of the knots were much worse than others. But it was still enough that that could be a huge turnoff for some people. I could deal with it, especially if the yarn is pretty and it's doing what it's supposed to, which it did. But I wouldn't purposely buy yarn like this, especially yarn this thin, because homespun, at least thankfully, is thicker than this. So it didn't get tangled on itself like this one did. The biggest problem I had with homespun was frogging. If I made a mistake, frogging with homespun was horrible. This frogged just fine, thankfully, because there were, you know, where it would split. And another issue I had is, as I was working in my squares, when I would go through to pick up the yarn right here to yarn over, if you're, you know, as I was going through and picking up some speed, I would end up inadvertently picking up like one little separated, it was still separating from itself from the previous row. And I would pull up like one string from the previous row. And, you know, my hook would get stuck, and to pull it out and sort of, you know, straighten that row a little bit and replace the yarn where it's supposed to go. This yarn was a challenge, you guys. It really was. This was not easy yarn to work with. The pattern was super easy. I really enjoyed the pattern, and I will make another blanket like this again. I think I'll try more color control next time, because I do have some more baby yarn, and I'm going to try this pattern again with a different type of yarn. I know it sounds like I'm absolutely hating on this yarn, and I'm not. I like it. I think it's pretty. It did its job. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It made this very sweet little baby blanket. But this was not easy because of how thin it is and how loosely it was spun. I would almost rather have had them send me a couple of skeins of 2 or 3 different colors and just have me do color changes with a solid, because I think it would have been a lot easier. Again, like I said, I'm not hating on it, but this was a challenge. It was absolutely a challenge. However, that being said, I did enjoy this project. It challenged me in ways that I had not previously been challenged. And I know it may sound weird, but I'm glad that I had these difficulties, because it's going to help me in the future. And I'm going to know now that if I have yarn that is very loosely spun like this, not to use my yarn ball winder, just do it by hand, take my time. And as I'm unrolling the yarn from the ball, to do it gently, just pull, you know, a couple of yards at a time, lay it out loosely, and you'll be just fine. Again, this was not so difficult to work with that I wouldn't use it again. but I would not go to the store and buy this type of yarn unless someone commissioned me to make something for them and this was what they wanted. Then I would do it. But beyond that, no, I wouldn't. So anyway, this is it. Our kit is done. I enjoyed this. This blanket is wonderful. I still need to clean it, but it turned out great. This was a lovely project. I'm glad that I did it, and I'm looking forward to our next kit. I've already got it, so we're going to be talking about that one here soon. So thank y'all for joining me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.